She was standing in my driveway, pointing at me like I was evidence of a crime, and all I had done was buy a house. Not borrowed it, not rented it, not inherited it from anyone. I had earned it, signed for it, and carried those keys in my pocket for 3 days before I even dared to use them, because some part of me needed to feel the weight of what that moment meant. And still, none of that mattered to her. The second she saw my face, she had already made her decision. What I didn't know standing there in my own driveway, watching her dial 911 like she was reporting a natural disaster, was that this moment wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the explosion at the end of a very long fuse she had spent months lighting. Let me take you back to the day it all started, because that's the only way any of this makes sense. I had saved for 6 years for that down payment. 6 years of skipped vacations, double shifts, and a running list in my head of everything I was willing to sacrifice for something permanent. I wanted a neighborhood with clean sidewalks and quiet mornings. I wanted a porch I could sit on without someone else's noise bleeding through the walls. I wanted a place that was mine, fully, legally, undeniably mine. When the offer was accepted, I sat in my car outside the realtor's office for a full 10 minutes, just breathing. Half Mexican, half Caucasian, born in this country, raised in this country, and finally planting a flag somewhere I chose. The neighborhood looked exactly like the photos. Mature trees lining wide streets, houses with trimmed hedges and polished mailboxes. It felt earned. It felt like an arrival. What I failed to notice was the woman watching from the porch next door, not smiling, not waving, just scanning me the way someone scans a receipt they already suspect is wrong. Move-in day arrived with all the beautiful chaos it always does. Boxes stacked sideways, movers calling out numbers, the particular exhaustion that feels like happiness. I was taping my name to the mailbox when I heard footsteps coming fast across the lawn. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't say welcome. She walked up with her chin elevated and asked what I was doing there. Not curiously, accusatorially, like the question itself was a warning. I told her calmly that I had purchased the house, pointed to my name on the mailbox, and offered to show her the documents. That's when her expression shifted into something harder. She said she would get to the bottom of it. She said mistakes happened. She said people like me didn't usually last long in neighborhoods like this. Then I said my name, Daniel Lopez, and I watched something change behind her eyes. No surprise, recognition, like she had just confirmed a suspicion she'd already built a case around. She told me the HOA would correct this and walked away with her jaw set like a verdict had already been delivered. That night, her porch light blinked on and off in the dark, and her silhouette stood behind the blinds, watching every box I carried through the front door. Before we go further, drop in the comments what country you're watching from. This story has traveled far, and we want to know how far. By morning, the optimism I had carried into this neighborhood had thinned, but I still believed in paperwork. I still believed that legal ownership was a language everyone understood. I was wrong, not about the law, but about Karen. She had already gone to the HOA board to push for a reversal of my purchase, and the board had shut her down hard. A neighbor whispered this to me quietly, the way people share information they're afraid to say out loud. I thought that was the end of it. I thought reason had won a fast, clean victory. What I didn't understand yet was that Karen didn't retreat when she lost. She recalibrated. If she couldn't remove me through process, she would remove me through pressure, one citation at a time, until living there felt more like a punishment than a choice. The notices started arriving like bad weather, quietly at first, then without stopping. A warning about trash placement the day after I had placed it exactly where the rules required. A fine for lawn height the same afternoon my grass was freshly cut. I laughed it off initially, filing it under clerical error and human pettiness. Then the next one came, and the one after that. I was fined for parking too close to my driveway, then for parking too far. One citation informed me that I had left the neighborhood too early in the morning, as if my 6 a.m. commute was a personal offense against her schedule. Another said my porch light had been on at the wrong hour. I laughed again, shorter this time, and then I looked at the fees attached, and I stopped laughing entirely. Karen made sure to appear every time a notice landed. She'd stand at the edge of her driveway, holding a clipboard like it was a shield, smiling that thin, satisfied smile of someone who believes bureaucracy belongs to them. I noticed my neighbors found other directions to look when she appeared. Their sympathy was silent and useless. That's when I stopped reacting and started recording. Photos with timestamps, emails saved and screenshotted, video logs organized by date. Every fine is cross-referenced against every rule. What emerged wasn't a pattern of enforcement. It was a portrait of obsession. Every single notice traced back to Karen. Not one other resident had received her attention. This wasn't about compliance. It had never been about compliance. It was about making me feel unwelcome enough to leave, and she had mistaken patience for weakness. The morning everything broke open felt different before it even started. There was a charge in the air, the kind that comes before something that cannot be taken back. My doorbell rang like it was angry. I checked the camera feed and saw her pacing on my porch, phone clenched, hair loose, yelling about eviction and purity in the same breath. I didn't rush. I walked to my phone, opened the camera, pressed record, and then stepped outside. She told me she couldn't live next to me anymore. She told me the board's approval didn't matter. She said she would remove me herself. And then, when I asked her, calmly, clearly on camera, why she hated me so much, she answered. She said I was a South American. She said people like me made neighborhoods unsafe. She said my presence offended her peace. Every word landed clean on the recording. Then she did the thing that sealed everything. She called 911. She told the dispatcher there was an illegal occupant in her neighborhood. She said she feared for her life. I stood there and let her finish, because I already understood what she didn't. That she had just handed me everything I needed, wrapped in her own voice. When the officers arrived, Karen stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment. She pointed, she accused, she commanded. I waited. When it was my turn, I handed them my phone and walked them through it all. The videos, the fines, the timestamps, the racist rant recorded less than 20 minutes earlier. I watched their expressions shift in real time. They separated us. One officer stayed with me while the other spoke to Karen in a voice that kept dropping lower. Then the handcuffs came out. She screamed that this was a mistake as they walked her toward the car, and maybe some part of her actually believed that. Neighbors appeared on their porches for the first time in months, watching quietly as the woman who had terrorized this street with a clipboard and a sense of racial entitlement was arrested for harassment and filing a false police report. By the end of that week, the board had removed her from her position. Quietly. Permanently. No drama, no announcement. Just a name no longer on a door, a seat no longer filled. The restraining order was granted shortly after. The neighborhood didn't become a different place. It just finally became what it had always advertised itself to be. Quiet, clean, and honest. I won't pretend that the whole thing left no marks. There are mornings I still replay moments, wondering if I could have ended it sooner, documented faster, spoken harder. But the thing I had to learn, and it cost months of invisible stress to learn it, was that I had never been the problem Karen needed to solve. I had been the mirror she couldn't stand looking into. My documentation didn't win because I was clever. It won because she never stopped to consider that someone she had dismissed might be paying closer attention than she was. If there's anything worth taking from this story, it's that dignity doesn't require volume. It requires consistency. It requires receipts. It requires patience to let someone expose themselves completely before you say a single word. I almost let her win, not by doubting, even for a moment, that I deserved to be there. I had earned that house 6 years before I ever walked into it. No clipboard, no citation, and no Karen was ever going to change that. Did she get what she deserved? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want more HOA showdowns like this one, make sure you like and subscribe, because we are just getting started.